Hey guys, what's up? David here, and today we're checking out Stanley Park in downtown Vancouver. But before we do that, we gotta do one thing. We gotta rent a bike, because the best way to see Stanley Park is by renting a bike. So we're gonna go to West Georgia and Denman Street, and there are literally like 4 bike shops right there on the corner, so you can pick what kind of bike you want, and each shop has a little something different. They even have electric bikes, they have tandem bikes, whatever you want. There's 4 different stores you can choose from, even rollerblades. And what I like about this area is that there's a huge selection, but it's also just across the street from the seawall. So once you've grabbed your bike, you go across the street, and this is where you're going to find the entrance to the seawall that's going to take you right into Stanley Park. And be aware that there are certain sides for bikes and certain sides for people walking, and if you forget which side, it's okay because on the concrete they have indicators. And before we go any further, I want to help you guys by letting you know that the Stanley Park seawall is only one direction, so you can only go one way around the park. Now, I see people going all the time the opposite direction, but that's kind of like driving a car on the opposite side of the road. You're just going to be avoiding people the entire time. So to ensure that you have a fun time in Stanley Park, this is the direction you're going to want to go counterclockwise. And that only applies if you're on the seawall. If you're just on the regular trails in Stanley Park, you can go wherever you want. And if you happen to be visiting between March and April, that's when the cherry blossom trees bloom in Vancouver. Now this is a really nice place to get some photos if that's your thing. It's right at the beginning of Stanley Park. As you make your way down the seawall, to your right you'll see the Vancouver Rowing Club, and across the street to your left is a statue of Robert Burns. He was a Scottish poet, and right behind him you'll find a statue of Lord Stanley with a decree stating, "To the use and enjoyment of people of all colors, creeds, and customs for all time, I name thee Stanley Park." Right beside Lord Stanley is the Rose Garden, or what might be a rose garden depending on when you're visiting. This is the end of March and this is what it looks like. Now if you wait till later in the summer and you're visiting, you're going to see something more like this. Beautiful roses everywhere, looks really cool. We're going to head back down to the seawall where we got off and continue our journey down towards our next stop, which is the horse-drawn carriages and the info center. If you're interested in going on the horse-drawn tours, sign up for my mailing list. I'm currently working on a course that shows you how to save money on this attraction and many others throughout Vancouver. And no matter where you are, I would always suggest checking out the info center when you get to a new area. Take a look at the map, get an idea of what's around you, where the trails are, and of course, grab a map to take with you because it's always handy to have a paper map on hand. This is the one you're going to be looking for right here. And if you're headed to the Vancouver Aquarium, the road leading up to it is right next to the info center right here. And the last thing I'll mention about this little area we're in is right behind the info center is the Macklin Bowl. They do live musical theater and concerts here in the summer, so check it out if you're interested in going to either of that, and right beside it is a place you can grab a bite to eat. Now, continuing down the seawall where we left off, you start to get a beautiful view looking back at the city. It's just a gorgeous cityscape, and I love looking at the city from this side of Stanley Park. And if you are thinking about walking versus biking, keep in mind this whole loop is 10 kilometers long. Next up are the totem poles. These are super popular, and there's also a concession / washroom nearby if you need that. Getting back to the totem poles, these things are huge, handcrafted, just amazing to look at. There's also little plaques that give you a story about each one. Continuing on from there, we're going to quickly run into Hallelujah Point. This is an area where you can get a really nice shot of the city, and right behind it is a statue of Henry Winston Jerome, who is an athlete in British Columbia and held 6 world records. Right behind that statue is the 9 o'clock gun. Now, the 9 o'clock gun is famous, and if you're just walking around Vancouver and you hear this loud bang, check your phone. It's probably 9 o'clock because they fire this every night at 9 o'clock. You want to see it? Let's take a look. They don't fire anything out of it, it's just gunpowder, but it is a really loud bang. I turned down the volume for you guys on that one. And our next stop is a little lighthouse, but I'm going to tell you, my number one attraction, my favorite thing about Stanley Park is this. It's the view, it's the scenery, it's the water. When you're riding a bike down the seawall on a nice hot day with the breeze rolling off that water, it is incredible. That is the best thing about Stanley Park, and that's why I highly recommend taking a bike ride around the park. And while we're enjoying that intoxicating fresh air, we're going to see another little stop. It's the girl in the wetsuit. Now, little photo tip, bring a telephoto lens because that's actually quite a distance out there. And right next to her is a replica of a figurehead that would be on a boat that did commerce in the 1800s, early 1900s. Here's the thing, Canadian geese live all over this area, and that means they shit all over the grass. So as beautiful as it looks, there's shit everywhere. So bring something to sit on if you're gonna come have a picnic. This is the Lumberman's Arch in honor of the BC forest industry. There's a little concession stand in this area and a water park if you're bringing children with you. Our next stop is going to be Prospect Point. Now, if you're driving, you'll just follow the road up to Prospect Point, and if you're on bike and you're going by the seawall, you're going to continue until you see a little lighthouse, and there's going to be a trail that'll lead you up to Prospect Point. From here, you're going to have access to another info center if you didn't stop at the first one. There's a trading post, which is a gift shop. There's a restaurant. You can get ice cream, which is a nice treat on a sunny day, and it offers incredible views looking at West and North Vancouver. This little viewpoint is also where it leads back down to the seawall. Here is the path you'll take to get back down to the seawall from this viewpoint. And once you get back down to the seawall, you'll pretty much just be cruising until you hit Third Beach. But if you do want to take a little detour up to the hollow tree, you can go check out this famous tree that was very popular in its day. And when I say popular, I mean this was like a night out at the movies. People would get in their cars, get dressed up, drive up to the tree, park their car in the tree, and then take a photo, and it's like, yeah, that's a good Saturday night. If you decide to skip the hollow tree, you'll just continue down the seawall, eventually passing by Swisher Rock and into Third Beach. Third Beach has some gorgeous, beautiful sandy beaches, great place to lay down, read a book, chill out, hang out with friends. This place is probably more popular with young adults, so you might find a little bit more drinking, smoking on the beaches, which isn't permitted, but people still do it. There's also a concession and washrooms at Third Beach, and there's a restaurant. From here, we're going to make our way over to Second Beach, and by the time you hit Second Beach, you're probably about 75% done the entire loop. And just before we get there, we're going to notice the giant outdoor swimming pool. This is open from the end of May to the beginning of September, and costs about $6.50 for adults and $4 for children. There's also a concession nearby, and that's going to put us right into Second Beach, which is definitely the more family-friendly option because it's got the nice water, it's got the beach, it's also got playgrounds for children, and there's, of course, Moby bikes all throughout the park, so if you're using that system, you can use these bikes, but keep in mind you only got that 30-minute limit. And at this point, we can either continue down the seawall and end up in English Bay, or we can take a left and go towards the Lost Lagoon. This is going to kind of bring us full circle to where we started entering Stanley Park. And the last few things I'm going to share with you is that there is a golf course at Stanley Park as well. There's lawn bowling, there's tennis courts, and in this area, there's also a road called Park Lane. And this is where you're going to find one of the biggest colonies of blue herrings in North America. They're here from February to August doing their thing, so you can catch them if you're in this area. And if you're visiting between June and September, there's a little miniature train in Stanley Park that I did not show you. Guys, I hope this has been helpful. My name's David, and I'm your guide to Vancouver.